2026 is not waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to decide, because the next 180 days will quietly determine whether the next 10 years elevate your life or repeat your past. Most people think the future is something that slowly happens to them. It's not. The future is something you decide. And here's the truth most people never hear. The next 180 days carry more power than the next 10 years if you use them correctly. Right now, someone is 6 months away from completely rewriting their life, and someone else is 6 months away from repeating the same decade again. The difference won't be luck, it won't be talent, it will be decision. You see, time doesn't change lives, focus does. Time doesn't create success, alignment does. The reason most people's lives don't change is not because they don't want success. It's because they want success without becoming someone new. But results always follow identity. If you keep thinking like who you are, you'll keep earning what you earn. If you keep acting like who you've been, you'll keep living where you are. Transformation begins the moment you say, I will no longer negotiate with my old self. The next 180 days are not about doing more. They're about deciding differently, deciding what you will tolerate, deciding what you will study, deciding what you will eliminate, deciding what you will pursue with ruthless clarity. Motivation won't save you. Motivation is emotional, and emotions change. But a decision backed by discipline creates momentum that doesn't ask how you feel. Success is not about working harder. It's about working higher. The next 6 months should not be spent chasing money. They should be spent building value, skills, and leverage, things that pay you repeatedly instead of once. Money follows value the way a shadow follows a body. And value is created when you invest in your mind daily, intentionally, and strategically. Your environment will either accelerate you or anesthetize you. What you listen to, what you watch, who you allow to influence your thinking. If you change nothing around you, don't expect anything within you to change. This is not a season for panic. This is a season for precision. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right things consistently without distraction. Because when clarity meets discipline, progress becomes inevitable. 6 months from now, your life will not be the same. The only question is better or familiar. The next 180 days are the blueprint. The next 10 years are the result. Choose wisely. Most people misunderstand time. They believe success is something that requires a long future, many years, or perfect conditions. But time itself has never created results. Focus has. When attention becomes concentrated, time compresses. What normally takes a decade can be achieved in months when energy, decisions, and execution are aligned toward a single outcome. Think about this. The difference between someone who drifts for 10 years and someone who transforms in 6 months is not effort, it's intentional pressure. Pressure, when applied in the right direction, produces growth at an accelerated rate. Diamonds are not formed by time alone. They are formed by pressure applied consistently in one place. The same is true for human potential. Time compression happens when distractions are eliminated and priorities become non-negotiable. Most people waste years because their attention is divided. They chase many goals casually instead of committing to one goal completely. When focus is fragmented, progress slows. When focus is unified, progress multiplies. The next 180 days are powerful, not because they are long, but because they are short enough to demand intensity. When you give yourself 10 years, urgency disappears. When you give yourself 6 months, clarity sharpens. You start asking better questions. You stop entertaining excuses. You begin to see that many things you thought were necessary are simply habits you never questioned. Time compression forces you to operate with intention instead of convenience. In a compressed season, you stop negotiating with distractions. You choose depth over entertainment. You choose repetition over novelty. You choose discipline over comfort, and when those choices are made daily, momentum compounds faster than most people believe possible. The truth is, breakthroughs are rarely gradual. They are the result of decisive seasons where learning accelerates, execution sharpens, and identity upgrades. 6 months of focused learning can outperform 10 years of casual experience. 6 months of intentional action can undo years of stagnation. Time compression is not about rushing. It's about precision. It's knowing exactly what matters and refusing to dilute your effort. It's understanding that success is predictable when behaviors are consistent and aligned with a clear outcome. When you compress time, you compress mistakes, lessons, growth, and results into a smaller window. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they never create a season where everything else becomes secondary. The next 180 days can become that season. A season where distractions lose their power. A season where progress becomes visible. A season where future momentum is locked in. When time is compressed, identity shifts faster. Confidence grows faster. Skill compounds faster. And once momentum is created, it doesn't stop at 6 months. It carries into the next 6 years. That's the real power of time compression. It doesn't just change your schedule, it changes your trajectory. Most people chase results without ever questioning identity. They focus on what they want to have, what they want to earn, or what they want to achieve, while remaining the same person who produced their current reality. But results are never the starting point. Identity is. You will never consistently outperform the version of yourself you wake up as every day. Every action flows from self-image. The reason habits are hard to change is not because people lack willpower, but because habits are evidence of identity. You don't do what you want most. You do what you believe you are. Until that belief changes, effort becomes a fight against yourself. Identity operates silently. It influences how you speak, what you tolerate, how you manage time, and what you consider normal. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you'll always stop short of finishing. If you see yourself as someone who waits for the right moment, you'll always delay. But when identity shifts, behavior follows naturally. Without resistance, true transformation begins the moment you decide to upgrade who you are, not just what you do. This is why temporary motivation fails. Motivation can push action for a day, but identity sustains action for a lifetime. When you no longer see discipline as effort, but as alignment with who you are, consistency becomes automatic. Identity change is not loud. It happens in private decisions no one applauds. It happens when you choose preparation over comfort, growth over validation, and progress over approval. These moments seem small, but they compound because they reinforce a new self-concept. Each aligned action becomes proof, this is who I am now. Most people wait for results to validate identity, but high performers reverse the order. They act in alignment with the future version of themselves long before evidence appears. They don't wait to feel confident to act. They act, and confidence follows. They don't wait to be successful to think bigger. They think bigger, and success catches up. The next 180 days are powerful because they provide enough time to become someone new, not in theory, but in practice. When you consistently show up as the disciplined version of yourself, the focused version, the strategic version, your environment begins to respond differently. Opportunities recognize identity before they reward results. Identity determines standards, and standards determine outcomes. Once your standards rise, excuses no longer feel acceptable. Procrastination feels uncomfortable. Settling feels foreign. You don't need external pressure when internal standards are high. You self-correct automatically. This is why lasting success feels effortless from the outside. What looks like discipline is simply identity in motion. What looks like confidence is simply alignment between belief and behavior. When identity leads, results have no choice but to follow. Change who you believe you are, and you will never have to chase results. Again, they will chase you. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act. They tell themselves they'll start when they feel inspired, confident, or ready. But motivation is emotional, and emotions are unreliable. They rise and fall with circumstances, energy levels, and external validation. If your progress depends on how you feel, consistency will always be optional, and optional actions never produce extraordinary results. Decisions operate on a higher level than motivation. Motivation asks, do I feel like doing this? A decision declares, this is happening, regardless of how I feel. Once a true decision is made, debate ends. When debate ends, execution begins. Clarity replaces confusion, and discipline replaces delay. The reason most people struggle is not because they lack motivation, but because they've never made irreversible decisions. They keep their options open. They leave room to quit, postpone, or nego. Tiat. As long as quitting remains an option, effort will always be inconsistent. A decision closes exits. It removes escape routes and forces alignment. Motivation requires constant refueling. Decisions create momentum. When you decide something is non-negotiable, your brain stops searching for excuses and starts finding solutions. Energy follows commitment, not the other way around. The moment you decide, resources appear: time, focus, creativity, and courage. Successful people don't wake up more motivated than others. They wake up more decided. They don't rely on emotional highs to move forward. They rely on systems, routines, and standards they've already chosen. What looks like willpower is often just pre-made decisions in action. When decisions are weak, life becomes reactive. You respond to circumstances instead of directing outcomes. But when decisions are strong, life becomes proactive. You act with intention. Even when conditions are imperfect, progress stops waiting for permission. A powerful decision also reshapes identity. Every time you follow through on a decision, self-trust increases. Confidence grows not from success alone, but from honoring your word to yourself. This creates internal credibility, and internal credibility is more valuable than external approval. The next 180 days don't require endless motivation. They require a few clear, unbreakable decisions. Decisions about what you will do daily. Decisions about what you will no longer tolerate. Scions about what matters enough to protect with discipline. When decisions are clear, distractions lose power. Temptation fades because the outcome is already chosen. You stop asking if and start focusing on how. That shift alone separates leaders from drifters. Motivation fades. Circumstances change. Emotions fluctuate. But decisions once made and honored create a structure that carries you forward even on your weakest days. If you want different results, stop waiting to feel ready. Decide and let your actions catch up to your commitment. Most people are taught that success comes from working harder, longer, and faster. They are conditioned to believe that effort equals reward, but effort without leverage only leads to exhaustion. Labor trades time for money, and time is the only resource you can never multiply. Leverage, on the other hand, allows one decision, one skill, or one system to produce results repeatedly without requiring equal effort each time. The problem is not that people aren't working hard enough. The problem is that they're working in ways that cap their upside. When income is tied directly to hours, growth is limited by the clock. No matter how disciplined or talented someone is, there are only so many hours in a day. Leverage breaks that limitation. Leverage begins with skills that compound. Communication, sales, leadership, problem solving, and strategic thinking create value that scales. One improved skill can outperform years of physical effort. A single idea, when communicated well, can reach thousands. A single system, when built correctly, can operate without constant supervision. The next 180 days should not be spent doing more tasks. They should be spent learning how to create outcomes with fewer actions. This requires shifting from being busy to being intentional. Busy people focus on activity. Leveraged people focus on impact. Leverage also comes from systems. Systems turn effort into repeatable processes. When something works, a system captures it so it can work again without starting from zero. This is how progress compounds. Without systems, every day feels like starting over. With systems, every day builds on the last. Technology is leverage. Delegation is leverage. Intellectual property is leverage. But the most overlooked form of leverage is thinking. Most people never pause long enough to ask, is there a smarter way to do this? They rush into action without strategy, then wonder why results remain small. Leverage requires patience up front and discipline later. Building systems and skills takes effort before results show up. But once leverage is in place, results grow faster while effort decreases. This is why the most effective people appear calm while others are overwhelmed. They're not doing less because they're lazy. They're doing less because they're precise. Labor focuses on survival. Leverage focuses on freedom. Labor asks, how much can I do today? Leverage asks, what can I build onk? E, that pays me repeatedly. That shift in thinking changes everything. The next 180 days are an opportunity to stop renting your time and start owning your output, to stop measuring success by hours worked and start measuring it by value created. When leverage replaces labor, progress accelerates and sustainability replaces burnout. Work hard if you must, but think harder. Because effort multiplied by leverage is what creates exponential results most people underestimate. How much their environment is shaping their future. They believe success or failure is primarily about willpower, intelligence, or talent. But environment quietly programs behavior long before conscious decisions are made. What surrounds you influences what you think is normal, what you believe is possible, and what you expect from yourself. Your environment speaks to you constantly through conversations, content, routines, and standards. It sends silent instructions about how to live. If mediocrity is normal around you, excellence will feel uncomfortable. If distraction is normal, focus will feel unnatural. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you sink to the level of your environment. This is why so many motivated people still stagnate. They attempt to change habits without changing surroundings. They try to grow in environments that reward comfort, excuses, and distraction. Willpower eventually loses against constant influence. The mind adapts to what it repeatedly consumes. Environment is not J-U-S-T, physical space. It is mental and emotional exposure. What you listen to daily becomes your internal dialogue. What you watch shapes your expectations. Who you spend time with influences what you tolerate. Even silence, when filled with the wrong inputs, becomes limiting. High performers design their environments intentionally. They reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad ones. They place themselves where growth is the standard, not the exception. In those environments, discipline requires less effort because expectations are higher. When your environment changes, your behavior changes automatically. Focus becomes easier when distractions are removed. Confidence grows when surrounded by belief. Standards rise when excellence is modeled consistently. This is not coincidence, it is conditioning. The next 180 days offer a critical opportunity to audit your environment, to decide what stays, what goes, and what must be added. Some connections may need boundaries. Some inputs may need elimination. Some new influences may need to be introduced. Growth often requires subtraction before addition. Environment also shapes identity. When you are consistently exposed to higher thinking, better execution, and disciplined behavior, your self-image begins to shift. You start seeing yourself differently. Not because you tried to, but because your surroundings demanded more from you. This is why proximity matters. Being near progress accelerates progress. Being near complacency reinforces stagnation. You don't need more pressure. You need better positioning. Destiny is not random. It is shaped daily by what you allow into your life. Change the environment, and the future begins to change automatically. Most people misunderstand urgency. They confuse it with stress, chaos, and constant pressure. They believe that to move fast, they must feel overwhelmed. But true urgency is not loud. It is calm, clear, and controlled. Panic scatters energy. Urgency directs it. Panic comes from uncertainty. Urgency comes from clarity. When you don't know what matters, everything feels important. When everything feels important, anxiety takes over. But when priorities are defined, urgency becomes focused action instead of emotional reaction. Urgency without panic means understanding that time is valuable without treating it as an enemy. It is the awareness that delay has consequences, paired with the confidence that consistent action is enough. There is no rush. There is rhythm. There's no chaos. There is order. People who panic tend to overreact. They start too many things, abandon them quickly, and mistake motion for progress. Urgent people do the opposite. They commit to fewer actions, execute them well, and repeat them daily. They understand that speed comes from consistency, not frenzy. Calm urgency allows better decisions. When the mind is settled, strategy improves, focus deepens, execution sharpens. You stop reacting to every distraction and start protecting what matters. This is how progress accelerates without burnout. The next 180 days require urgency, not anxiety. They require discipline, not desperation. There is no need to sprint blindly. There is a need to move intentionally every day without interruption. Urgency without panic also builds trust in yourself. When you operate calmly under pressure, you reinforce confidence. You begin to believe in your ability to execute regardless of circumstances. That belief becomes stability, and stability creates momentum. Most people slow down because they are emotionally exhausted, not because they are incapable. Panic drains energy, clarity restores it. When you know what to do and why it matters, effort feels lighter. Urgency is a decision to act now without fear. Panic is fear pretending to be action. The difference is internal. One expands capacity, the other collapses it. The future rewards those who move early, not those who move frantically. When urgency is guided by clarity, progress becomes inevitable and sustainable. Move now, but move with intention. The next 180 days are not just another stretch of time, they are a crossroad. What you choose to focus on, what you decide to tolerate, and who you decide to become during this window will quietly shape the next 10 years of your life. You don't need more information. You don't need perfect conditions. You need clarity, commitment, and consistent execution. Time can be compressed. Identity can be upgraded. Decisions can be made permanent. Leverage can replace exhaustion. Environment can be redesigned. Urgency can exist without panic. This is not about doing everything. It's about doing what matters every day without distraction and without delay. 6 months of discipline, alignment, can create momentum that carries you for a decade. The future is not approaching you randomly. It is responding to who you choose to be right now. 6 months from today, you will look back at this moment as either the turning point or just another missed opportunity. The blueprint is clear. The window is open. The decision is yours. Start today